What will Qualcomm's pushback be in terms of price?
I think the initial one is that, yes, this is an opportunistic bid. They're coming in when Qualcomm shares have been, trading significantly down because they're in this intense legal fight with Apple. They're getting antitrust investigations from all over the country. And if you look back just this time, about last year, Qualcomm was trading at $70 a share. And so I think they'll say, you know what, this does not represent the overall value of what we think this company is worth. I think that's the initial pushback. And then I think you have to look at, is there going to be regulatory pushback from Qualcomm's perspective? Are they going to say, there's no way that government agencies are going to allow us to combine companies of this scale?
Yeah, and let's talk about that, because you have Qualcomm trying to buy NXP, then you have Broadcom buying Brocade, and that's been up to regulatory tie-ups for the last year. What kind of company are we looking at if those four companies truly become one?
You have a behemoth, and I think that's the really interesting thing here is that the NXP deal hasn't closed, the Brocade deal hasn't closed. Broadcom, it used to be called Avago, and it had just purchased the U.S. company of Broadcom. The NXP company that Qualcomm's trying to buy just purchased Freescale a few years ago. So you were talking about like a 7-way deal integration, which is sort of crazy to think about because just a merger of Broadcom and Qualcomm on its own would be significantly difficult. You're talking about, combining operations all over the world and, integrating these teams and taking out costs. When you just multiply that by a factor of 7, 6, whatever it ends up being in the end, I just think that's going to be intensely complicated. And you have to wonder, does that open up the path for Qualcomm, Broadcom competitors to sort of take market share, capitalize on the fact that these companies are going to be very distracted for the time being?
So Brooke, how big a role is Apple likely to play in this? Because as you say, Apple was already complaining, we're getting charged too much here. They're in a legal patent dispute already. They're not going to be very happy with this consolidation in the people who supply them chips.
Yeah, it's sort of a complicated situation because Broadcom is also an Apple supplier, and so you could see that they would be sort of disgruntled about the fact that these two big suppliers are getting together, but Broadcom also has a better relationship with Apple. So it will be sort of interesting to see how that plays out. The other thing that's been speculated is if this deal did happen, would we then see a spin-off of Qualcomm's licensing business, which is sort of at the crux of this dispute with Apple? And if you remember, a few years ago, that was something that activist JANA Partners actually proposed. They wanted Qualcomm to split apart its licensing and its chipset business. Now, maybe if we saw this deal and you were looking for sources of financing, could you see a spin-off like that maybe happening?